Dear grandchild, I am writing this to you rather than to my own children, because children tend not to listen to their parents. I did not listen to mine, and I have every reason to believe that you are likely not paying any heed to yours. I hope that in place of their advice and wisdom, you might listen to me, because grandparents can sometimes be a little more interesting than parents, and dead ancestors more interesting still. What I hope to give you is the most valuable thing that I can give. When I was younger, I tried to figure out what was most worth caring about. What matters in life? What is most worth loving? How can you live a good life and find meaning in it? I spent 10 years caring deeply about these sorts of questions, and I studied business, power, politics, philosophy, and religion. All of these are important, but they are all transient. They do not last, and are not as satisfying as I had hoped they might be, as answers to the questions of what matters, what is worth caring about and loving, and how to live a good life. This letter concerns what is lasting, what I believe is an answer to these questions should they interest you. I believe it is an old answer concerning identity, one tacitly understood by generations of the distant past, but which has been forgotten in recent times. When I was growing up, we did not even have a word for it. Please grant me the patience to wind my way toward this idea with some explanation. As a young adult, I assume that you have learned that the only way to accomplish anything is to invest yourself in your desired goal. Perhaps you spend time making something. Perhaps you work hard to earn the money to buy an object. Perhaps you take a course to learn a skill. All of these are investments of yourself in the present, so you might be better off in the future. This is how people become talented athletes, good employees, high-grade students, accomplished musicians, or anything else you might hope to become. An old Greek philosopher named Heraclitus once said that a man can never step in the same river twice, because it is not the same river, and he is not the same man. There is some truth in this. People change over time. They cannot stay the same even if they wanted to. If you accept Heraclitus' view that we are different people from moment to moment, then you might say that the success of future you is dependent upon the investment of present you. Your practice, study, attention, and effort transform into a legacy that your future self inherits. Of course, this may all sound a little strange. Unless you are suffering from a very rare psychological disorder, you probably feel very much like one person. You feel as if you are the same person today that you were yesterday and will be tomorrow. Nevertheless, you probably recognize that you are not exactly the same today as you were yesterday. People do change over time. If we change enough, can we truly say we are the same person? There's an old puzzle about this question, called the Ship of Theseus problem. Theseus was a hero from the city of Athens who slew the Minotaur of the labyrinth in Crete. His ship became famous in Greek storytelling because after he set sail for home, he forgot to change the color of his sail, as he had promised his father he would if his journey had been successful. Seeing his son's ship on the horizon, and seeing the black sails instead of the victorious white sails, Theseus's father Aegeus assumed that Theseus had died and killed himself in grief. The Athenian people were so moved by the successful defeat of the ferocious Minotaur and the tragic death of Aegeus that they kept and maintained Theseus's ship in the harbor for several hundred years. So everyone became familiar with Theseus's famous ship. Over the decades and centuries that it sat in the harbor, the ship needed repairs to stay afloat. First a few planks from the seawater, then a mast for a particularly windy and damaging storm. The ropes needed to be replaced after salt spray and hot sun wore them away. Then one day, the sailors and shipwrights realized that after all of these years, not a single part from the original boat remained. And one worker asked the question, is it the same ship? It is a surprisingly tricky question. If you say, it is the same ship because it looks the same, then I may be able to point out a dozen other boats on the Mediterranean of the same construction and appearance. They may even have been built by the same shipwright. Yet none of those are the ship of Theseus. None of those carried the Minotaur Slayer home from Crete, or flew the black sail instead of the white on the fateful journey home. It isn't just the materials, the design, or the appearance. Something about what makes the ship of Theseus the ship of Theseus, is in its history and in the connection between that history and the present. But let us return to yourself. Your body is not so different from a ship. It is constantly breaking down and rebuilding itself. Your skeletal system is completely replaced every 7 to 10 years. Your skin is replaced every 2 to 3 weeks, and some of your internal organ components take even less time. And your brain, though composed of a stable set of neurons, is constantly changing and modifying, breaking down and strengthening pathways that form our habits and memories. That's how we learn and forget things. With all of this change going on, how can we say that you are the same person today that you were yesterday? Are you the same person? Clearly you feel like the same person, but are you? That feeling of continuity matters. It is similar to that history and continuity with the past that makes the ship of Theseus unique. You feel like you are the same person because you share memories with your past self. Your decisions and actions are a part of your history, and the transition between your past self and your present self is so smooth that it feels continuous. If you think of your conscious experience as a kind of race, it feels more like a marathon than a relay race. It doesn't feel as though there are constant baton handoffs going on. This is not to say that the stuff that you are made of is not also a part of you and your history. Of course, even if your cells are constantly changing. Your body shapes your experience of the world, after all. All of this is to say that what makes you you is a combination of your remembered history and the stuff you are made of. However, I think there is one more component. I'm sure I must sound like a bit of a Hellenophile at this point, but there is a Greek word, telos, meaning end, which is used philosophically to refer to the ultimate aim or purpose of something. A boat is built to travel across the water, so we could say the end for which it was built, its telos, is marine travel. Humans are made, by God or evolution or something else, to do what humans do. Humans, after all, are much more complex than boats. A friend of mine once joked that a sheep is a machine for converting grass into sheep, and I suppose humans are a little like that too. But if a human were to do away with hunting, farming, negotiating, marrying, working, driving, complaining, and laughing, and if he were to simply wander the fields, running from predators and eating enormous quantities of grass, we might be right to say he is more sheep or cow than man. Something about who you are lies in your purpose, your telos, and in the means that you might employ to achieve that end. So, you are made of stuff, of history, and of your ultimate purpose, just as I am. These three things remain and make us who we are, even as parts of us may change or even die. Some people describe feeling like they have to be different people in different situations, like they have to put on a different mask in front of their coworkers, or their family, or their friends. While we all wear different masks in different circumstances, no one would say that you lose your identity every time you go to work. There is still a core underneath that remains the same. You will feel like a coherent individual, like one instead of many, when the masks are in harmony with that core. You and I share a special relationship where identity is concerned. I told you that the present you is inheriting the decisions and choices of the past you, but not everything that you inherit is your own making. If the present you can inherit the decisions and choices of the past you, and if you also inherit the decisions and choices of other people, might there be some similarity between these two types of inheritance? I believe that there is, and this similarity has implications in understanding what we are and how best to live. We are getting closer to the idea I hope to convey to you, but first, allow me one more introductory digression.